Hello dear viewers, I want to dedicate today's video to the unique ancient art of divination called mantika. Since ancient times, many practitioners of the mystical spiritual art of mantika have attempted to see the future, to delve into the essence of an issue of interest, to determine the cause of challenges and difficulties in the life of the person who turned to them. The main basis of this ancient professional art mantika was the knowledge of the will of the gods by communicating with the higher beings that have divine wisdom and ancient knowledge. A person who was engaged in the divination with the help of magical and spiritual tools was called an oracle, a soothsayer, or simply a medium. And experienced specialists today call a client a sitter. As a rule for divination, in ancient times, people used various techniques to interact with the main elements of nature, mainly through the human emotional sphere. Within this practice, they entered a trance state through the simplicity of listening to the rustling of leaves in the wind, the crackle of burning wood, or the murmur of a water source. Sometimes instead they used contemplation of the sky, peered into the depths of rivers and lakes, and listened to the singing of the birds. Later on, people began to make special divination items according to their own inspirations and special magical qualities. These objects were made from specific materials: wood, stones, and sometimes the skulls and skeletons of animals and reptiles. Gradually, experienced magicians and prophets began to use quartz crystal and also black obsidian. This is how the crystal spheres, skulls, and magical black mirrors, now known to the layman, appeared. Regular people also wanted to look into the future, and over time card decks gained their name among many people for divination. And experienced specialists began to call the art of a professional divination a rare term named mantika. At first, ordinary people began to make predictions using regular playing cards and dice. Later, playing cards evolved into unique original divination systems known as oracles. The new decks were created on the basis of centuries-old practices that they were passed down through generation. These decks contained symbols, signs, and colors that absorbed knowledge, which in their essence reflected the centuries-old life experience, wisdom, and the way of life of many people who turned to mantika professionals. Currently, the appearance of new decks for divination is growing exponentially. They seem to appear like the mushrooms after it rains. The main tools of a modern experienced mantika professional are tarot decks and oracle cards. Tarot is a classic card divination. Such a deck, for example, is the Rider-Waite Tarot. A variety of oracle cards are also very popular in our time. Unfortunately, many of them have gained popularity thanks to the beautiful pictures and advanced advertising of their creators. In fact, many of today's oracle cards are simply commercially oriented products, copied, artfully modified, and created in the likeness of a serious mantica systems. Alas, such decks will not be able to shed light on a client's current situation. At best, working with them, we will not learn anything, and worse, when used by an unexperienced practitioner with power, such decks can seriously harm. Such decks are very often based on traditional tarot systems and use a perversion of the true symbolism. As a result, these types of cards distort the messages coming to beginners from the spiritual plane, and therefore they will not be able to fully decode and interpret the messages through which the spirit tries to help the seeker, like a crooked mirror that distorts the image seen in it by the viewer. Tarot cards are a mystery, and their symbolism is essentially a repository of a secret knowledge, a storehouse of information about the past, present, and future events in the microcosm and macrocosm. The eminent psychiatrist Carl Gustav Jung actively encouraged the use of tarot. He stated that the late medieval cards really predated our deck of cards, in which red and black symbolize opposites, and the division into four suits, clubs, spades, diamonds, and hearts also applies to individual symbols. He was alluding to the use of oracles. He called them psychological images, symbols, with which a person plays in the same way as the unconscious seems to play with its contents. Regular playing cards are combined in a certain way in various combinations corresponding to game events in the history of mankind. Tarot cards depict symbols or symbolic situations. For example, he states tarot images of the Hanged Man, the Tower, and the Sun are archetypal ideas of a different nature. He noted the human need to discover through the unconscious the meaning of current conditions and pointed out the correspondence of similarity between prevailing conditions and the state of the collective unconscious. With the help of predictions, he sought to speed up the process of individuation, movement towards wholeness, and wholeness through playful combinations of archetypes. Jung called for an intuitive method whose aim is to understand the flow of life, perhaps even in predicting future events, in any case, in reading the conditions of the present moment. In my professional practice, which has continued for more than 25 years, during a mantica consultation, I often use a combination of about 8-10 decks that I select individually for my clients depending on issues in various areas of their life. As a born medium, I also consider myself a psychic researcher. After I experimented and analyzed my sessions, I developed the understanding that the contemplation of the cards by the client helps the oracle to better tune into the energy informational field of the client's aura. and to establish and stabilize the connection of the chain between the spiritual plane, the medium, and the client. The cards become the material carrier of the energy and information. It also increases the quality and the level of energy informational resonance during the medium's contact with the spirits of a client's ancestors, higher beings, angels, or spiritual mentors. The involvement of a figurative content in the form of physical, visual stimulus material significantly stabilizes and strengthens the channel between the medium, the seer, and the astral world. It enhances the overall energy of the session and contributes to the emergence of a variety of new energy informational flows coming both from above and from the client to the medium, and the diversity of information gained during the session. As a result, such a professional session becomes more useful, more informative, and increases the quantity and the quality of contacts with the spiritual world. It opens up new opportunities and perspectives for choosing the optimal solution to a particular issue and helps the oracle work simultaneously as a psychic, medium, and a channeler. Very often it helps to get information about the past lives of the seer through the channeling and helps us to understand the role and mission of the seer in this incarnation. Also, experienced professionals are always guided by messages coming from their guides and angels, higher beings, mentors, and ancestors on how to work with a card deck in each individual case. As a result, each session is brought to a much greater level. A professional practitioner reads each card according to its symbolism and meaning, according to their energy, and interprets the messages and experiences of the great creators of this or that deck. They do this with the involvement of the guidance and messages from the spiritual beings who took part in creating a particular deck. In this case, the deck becomes not just an oracle, but a real magical instrument, and the oracle becomes a prophet using this instrument. The prophet then is able to become a predictor capable of prophesying about the fate of not only a person, but also a separate territory, country, or nation. Currently, there are very few such unique decks, as well as very few practitioners working at such a high professional level. In my practice, I use light, dark, neutral, and magical decks. Through the use of light decks, I am able to receive unique messages from angels, guides, and ancestors. This may be advice that can bring a person out of the depression, raise their vibration, boost their overall level of energy in a particular area of life, contribute to their physical well-being through spiritual healing, all through the messages that the card carries. For example, the Indigo Angel Oracle by Dorian Virtue. Some of the light decks in my collections are Orion's Tarot deck, Prisma Visions Tarot, various versions of a Gypsy Oracle cards, and a collection of Doreen Virtue Oracle cards. Dark decks helps to look through the whole ins and outs of a person shedding light on a problematic situation, helps them to understand the source of its occurrence, and most importantly, it can describe a karmic lesson from the existing crisis. If successfully interpreted, this information will lead a person out of this dark situation to a completely new level of understanding the causes of difficulties. For these reasons, my favorite dark deck is called the Lenormand Malefic Oracle. As for the special magical decks, I include ones that were created by artists who are magicians, enlightened people, and those capable of creating a special magical instrument that carries prophecies and the properties for receiving messages from the subtle worlds. And most importantly, these decks, when in the skillful hands of an experienced medium and magician, are able to influence life events. Examples of my magical decks are the Siren's Melody Tarot, and the Tarot de Los Angeles. Unfortunately, such decks will only work in a conjunction with the individual energy of the magician. These decks themselves find the practitioner. I hope this information is enlightening and inspires you to work with a professional, magical practitioner such as myself.